This honor belongs to the 1924 silent film directed by Herbert Brennan, starring Betty Bronson. In 1924, the prospect of making a film adaptation of Peter Pan must have been incredibly daunting to director Herbert Brennan. Barrie's novel contains many fantastical elements like flight, fairies, and disembodied shadows, and not as if the film could depend on computer editing or CGI graphics. Brennan had to find a way to make the fantasy come to life using the technology he had on hand. If this movie was going to succeed, audiences needed to believe it. It needed to maintain a suspension of disbelief. Suspension of disbelief refers to the temporary acceptance of fantastical elements by an audience in order to fully appreciate works of fiction. In text, maintaining a suspension of disbelief is relatively easy. Since there is no visual component to the work, all that is needed is logical consistency. All an author needs to do is create rules for their world and stick with them. The reader's imagination fills in the rest. However, on film, maintaining suspension of disbelief is much, much harder. Every element must be carefully crafted to look and sound real enough that the audience immerse themselves in the story. This being the very first adaptation of Peter Pan on film, J.M. Barrie was heavily involved in its writing and production. Barrie personally cast the relatively unknown Bronson as Peter, even though many other famous actresses wanted it. He also had final approval over all the special effects used in the movie. In this capacity, Barrie repeatedly pushed the filmmakers to make the effects more realistic and true to his original vision. The first challenge filmmakers had to overcome was flight. They found it was relatively easy to use stage-like fly systems to make the actors fly in close-up shots, so most of the flight scenes are shot in close-up. Additionally, many times darkness is used to shroud wires and harnesses from the viewer's eye. However, Barrie was unsatisfied doing just this. He wanted to use the medium of film to push the envelope of what was possible. He wanted to do something that wasn't possible on stage. So, the director used cutaway shots of moving models to make it look like Peter and the children were flying from far away. Next, the filmmakers had to deal with Tinkerbell. The filmmakers knew they needed a way to show her both close up and from far away. In some scenes, she needed to be shown flying around a room, and in others, she needed to be seen interacting with characters. In the wide shots, filmmakers decided to use puppeteering techniques to suspend a bundle of lights from the ceiling. Then this bundle could be moved around the room, creating the illusion that Tinkerbell was flying. The close-up shots proved to be trickier. Eventually, the technique of double exposure was decided on. The actress playing Tinkerbell was shot performing her scenes on a blank background. Then, the same film was used again to shoot the background needed to make Tinkerbell look like the size of a fairy. Put together, these created the illusion that Tinkerbell was standing on the clock. The final challenge the filmmakers were faced with is Peter's shadow. For shots of the shadow itself, a cut piece of sheer cloth in the shape of a human silhouette was used. This technique was used commonly in the stage adaptations of Peter Pan. Then, when it was time to attach Peter's shadow, the filmmakers used lighting tricks to seamlessly transition the cloth shadow into a real one. To us modern viewers, spoiled by high-budget CGI movies, the effects used in this film seem rudimentary and barely competent. However, all of the techniques used in this film proved to be incredibly successful because of how impressive they were at the time. The movie received high praise, and its double exposure techniques were thought to be revolutionary. All told, the film made millions of dollars on a budget of just $40,000. It is clear that audiences were able to suspend their disbelief and get drawn into the story of Peter and Wendy. There is no doubt that the technical, critical, and financial success of this film paved the way for Peter Pan to become the movie star he is today.